You got smoke on your wheels. How does life in a fast lane feel?
Stay straight.
Hey, look, those turbos flashing. Has the lights all the way.
Stay straight.
It's just like wheel racing, and you're gonna stay.
Electric.
Here's what happens when you plug into the Nintendo Entertainment System. Only Nintendo presents Rob in the Gyromite game, the Zapper and Duck Hunt. And only Nintendo lets you collect all these exciting games. The Nintendo Entertainment System. It's waiting for you at Boots now.
Welcome, listeners of Illusion, to Series 2 of Temporal Discussion, the episode-by-episode Nightmare retrospective podcast. I'm one half of the Gestalt entity known as the Two Martins, Martin Harder.
And I'm Martin O'Doney, and I was thinking more on the lines of the Knights Martins. Well, now I think about it some more, maybe that just sounds like it's a little bit loaded down with wrong.
Series 1 of... Series 1 of Nightmare ended on October the 26th, 1987, and season... blah, 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 blah.
Series 1 of Nightmare ended on October 26th, 1987, and Series 2 didn't begin until the 5th of September, 1988. I cannot believe I was forced to wait that long for it to come back. I felt every single minute of that at the time, I'm telling you. But of course, what does this mean, Mr. H?
Well, it means we missed a lot at the box office and in the music charts, especially the box office. There were some incredible films released during that time, weren't there?
Yeah, there were genuinely some very, very good ones. I think it was definitely a very good period for sort of pop culture impact. Whether you like them or not, you cannot deny they had a really serious reach in an awful lot of them.
Well, let's have a look at some of them. First up, we have Roxanne, which is a great film.
That was an import based on the French play Cyrano de Bergerac.
Yes, it's a modernisation of it starring Steve Martin.
It's probably most famous for the scene where Steve Martin is basically telling jokes about his own nose.
Start with obvious. Excuse me, is that your nose or did a bus park on your face? Meteorological. Everybody take cover. She's going to blow.
Fashionable. You know, you could de-emphasize your nose if you wore something larger, like Wyoming.
Personal. Well, here we are. Just the three of us. Punctual. All right, Delman, your nose was on time, but you were 15 minutes late. Envious. Oh, I wish I were you. Gosh, to be able to smell your own ear. Naughty. Pardon me, sir. Some of the ladies have asked if you wouldn't mind putting that thing away.
I was just going to say, it's in keeping with the insult battle a couple of episodes ago.
It's very, very clear Steve Martin copied that from Nightmare.
The only explanation.
Precisely, Robin. The only possible meaning.
Beverly Hills Cop 2 re-entered for a short while, but we won't dwell on that, because immediately after that is one of my favourite movies, Inner Space.
Test pilot Tuck Pendleton wants to make history. Supermarket clerk Jack Putter needs a vacation.
Jack, you're late. That's not good. You know it's coupon day.
Lieutenant Pendleton is about to be miniaturized, placed into this needle, and then injected into this rabbit.
Rock and roll.
But something went wrong, and Tuck's about to get a new destination. Inside Jack Putter.
I'm in a man.
Hello, can you hear me?
I'm possessed!
Now, Jack's got twice the problems,
How you doing, Jack?
but he's double the man. With Tuck on his side,
Kick him more accounts.
in his gut, and on his case.
You're not gonna bag groceries all your life, are you, Jack?
And only 24 hours left for Jack to get out of danger, so that Tuck can get out of Jack.
I got to admit, I've got a very soft spot for Inner Space. I think that was what's his name, the actor.
Dennis Quaid and
Dennis
Martin
Quaid,
Short.
yes. Dennis Quaid, yeah. Dennis Quaid for most of his career has been sort of fabled as a poor man's Harrison Ford, and I do get entirely what people say there. But in Inner Space, he was brilliant. He was absolutely perfect for that role. And if Harrison Ford had been cast in the role instead, he wouldn't have done as good a job.
It has one of the best henchmen in movie history, in my opinion, in Mr. Yago, who was played by Arnold Schwarzenegger's stunt double, who was also the first reanimated corpse in Reanimate.
One of the things that does rather surprise me about Inner Space is how often the BBC have chosen to show it at kids' viewing hours.
Yes!
So often I've seen them showing it at around 4:30 in the afternoon. And you think of that scene with the detachable hands.
That went well over my head as a kid, because they don't actually show it, do they? But you can hear it.
No, there can be any doubt what's really going on there.
So after Inner Space, there were a couple of movies which are more known for their pop culture rather than actually being good. Bigfoot and Henderson's was one of them, and Masters of the Universe was another.
This is another interesting shock here. Some of the other films that were around at the time. But looking back on it, I wouldn't have believed you if you told me that they were in the cinema at the same time as Masters of the Universe. Predator and Robo were both on at the cinema at the time, or just roughly around the same time.
Now that's got to be a crossover, isn't it? Predator versus RoboCop versus He-Man.
February 1988, Planes, Trains and Automobiles. Fatal Attraction, 19th of February.
And we've got Batteries Not Included.
That's my mum's birthday, the 25th of March. Obviously, I should have taken her to the cinema that day to watch Batteries Not Included. Three Men and a Baby, 8th of April, 1988.
I mainly remember that for the urban legend surrounding it, with the apparent ghost that is actually just a cardboard cutout of one of the actors. After that, we had Wall Street, Overboard, Crocodile Dundee 2, and then the absolute classic. Give it big fanfare. Police Academy 5, Assignment Miami Beach.
Coming to America in August 1988. That was actually one which I thought was later. I thought that one was 1989.
And then on the 19th of August 1988.
Beetlejuice?
Yes, that's it!
Name's Beetlejuice?
You said it twice. Just say it once more. Come on.
No. I want to talk to Barbara.
No, you don't need the Barbara. Just say it.
I actually think Michael Keaton was better in Beetlejuice than he was in Batman.
And that takes us bang up to date with the box office.
Okay, music. Now, again, this is a big shock to me. T'Pau, one of the great songs of the 1980s. I will not hear anybody argue with that. It was at number 1 on the 8th of November 1987. I always remembered it as being about August 1986. I was shocked again to find out how much later it was out than I remembered it being. I swear I saw at Christmas 1986 a review of the top music over the year, and I could swear that it was one of the songs they played, but apparently it wouldn't have been. It's amazing the way that your memories sort of telescope into each other.
It'd actually been in the charts for a while before it actually hit number 1 by the looks of it.
Even so.
And we've got the Pet Shop Boys with Belinda Carlisle with Tiffany.
Oh God, the most overrated hit of the late 80s. 14th of February 1988. Kylie Minogue starts off her career as a singer with... Again, I could have sworn that one was out before Tiffany's song.
Yeah, with Aswad with Don't Turn Around.
The Pet Shop Boys are at number 1 again with Heart.
And then we've got, how do you pronounce this? Is it Sexpress?
S-Express. Didn't actually like the theme from S-Express, which is the one that got to number 1.
And after that, we've got Fairground Attraction with Perfect.
And then we got Wet, Wet, Wet. Billy Bragg with Cara Tivey as well. Was this a collaboration of one song, or is it 2 songs number 1 at the same time?
It was actually a double A-side, with Wet, Wet, Wet singing With a Little Help from My Friends, and Billy Bragg featuring Cara Tivey with She's Leaving Home.
And then, of course, most unforgivable...
Doctor Who, Doctor Who.
Oh no. The following week then begins the cult that was Bros. I Owe You Nothing actually got to number 1.
And next up is Glenn Medeiros. Nothing's going to change my love for you.
Oh, that 1987. Oh, now I remember him. Yeah, he sort of looks a little bit like the guy from The Karate Kid.
Nothing's going to change my love for you as long as you
Sweep the leg.
Then comes one of the great songs of 1988, Yaz and the Plastic Population with The Only Way Is Up. And in September, just before Nightmare resumes, Bill Collins is at number 1 with A Groovy Kind of Love. That was a song made for Buster.
Yeah.
That's at the top of the charts as we begin the second season of Nightmare.
But it's time to go back to the present briefly now, as there's a bit of admin to do before we get into Series 2 proper. The first thing we want to do is thank you all from the bottom of our hearts. When I first approached Martineau with the idea of doing a Nightmare podcast, I wasn't sure it was going to work. And whilst we don't have a huge amount of listeners, we have built up a small but dedicated following. Some of them like the podcast so much they even give us money. Our Patreon currently stands at around $8 a month, and 100% of that will go back into the podcast. Last month I was able to buy a microphone arm, which means that I no longer suffer from crippling back pain every time we record. So, in no particular order, I'd like to thank Luke Bale, Nikki and Bunty, and Kevin Clarkson for your contributions. And to everybody else who's stuck with us over the past few episodes, you lot make this worth doing. The second thing we need to address is the fact that I'm about to start a new job, which is going to take up a lot of my time. On top of that, Martineau and myself have both taken home learning courses, which also require a lot of time. Also, putting out a podcast is hard. There's setting time aside to rewatch the episodes and take notes, there's script writing, the actual recording of the podcast, editing, which is an arduous task, episode art, and then finally polishing it all up ready for release. I absolutely love doing it, but that is a lot of work to make a weekly deadline. However, we remain dedicated to seeing this thing through to the end. We fully intend to cover all 8 series of Nightmare, but in order to do so without going absolutely crazy, we've made the decision that starting from the release of this episode, we will be switching from a weekly release to a fortnightly release. We feel that this is the best way for us to continue to provide the podcast that you deserve. We're also planning a few different things this series, including the possibility of vodcasts and maybe even some Twitch streams. So, with all that out of the way, let's talk about Nightmare. And now, time turns, the fire burns, time out is gone, the podcast is on.
Welcome, Watchers of Illusion, to the Castle of Confusion. I, Tregard, challenge you to the ultimate adventure. The next phase of the dungeon is now complete. The door to your world is open.
First difference I noticed is during the title sequence, right at the end, the Nightmare logo is superimposed over a crackling fireplace. In the first series, it was always a still photo.
You can see how much the budget had increased already.
It doesn't really mean much, but, you know, there's someone out there who's probably going to have a go at us if we don't mention it.
Yeah, I think the main problem they actually had with that thing in the first season was just because it was a still frame and because Nightmare was written in bright, fiery letters, people couldn't read the title when it appeared there. So by having Nightmare with frozen letters in place while the fire is actually moving around behind it, it becomes easier to read it.
And the pacing of the introduction itself kind of matches the pacing of the rest of the episode too. It's a lot faster paced than most of the episodes in Series 1.
It already is, yeah. That's another of the strengths. It's still quite slow compared with some of the later seasons, it should be expressed, but it's definitely faster than Season 1. The teams have now got experience of watching the series the previous year, so they're not as awkward.
But have they all, though?
Well, not all of them, as it turns out, no. They have at least learned how manoeuvring's done.
Again, have they?
A lot of the stuff that's carried over from Season 1 is still exactly the same, but a lot of the rooms have been recoloured. Some of the actors, I think, have been carried over. They now have a clear idea of what they have to do so they can stay in character, but at the same time they can guide the gameplay a bit more effectively than they could in the first season. Tim Child at this point has got a writing system. He's now able to get rid of a lot of the dialogue flab that was slowing down the first season as well. So you see an immediate and really quite dramatic improvement there.
Treguard wastes absolutely no time in bringing in the first challenger of this phase.
Enter stranger. Ah, the first challenger of this stage. Your name for the roles, please.
Martin Roundtree.
Very well, Martin. Your reward is squiredom, the first stage to knighthood, but only if you survive this quest. Now, summon your 3 advisors.
John, Lee, and Tony.
Who guides this dungeoneer?
Lee Carl from Sunderland.
Tony Blakey from Sunderland. John Scott from Sunderland.
Your challenge is accepted.
Tell us about the elephant in the room, Martin.
Yes, Martin.
Certainly. Go ahead, Martin. I'm listening. I'm all ears, Martin.
We have a dungeoneer called Martin.
Clearly going to be a very, very intelligent, handsome, dynamic, charismatic dungeoneer. And it should help avoid any Brew-style confusion for us too.
And Dungeoneer Martin is looking very smart. I will point out something here that I see sometimes, and it kind of takes me out of the illusion a bit. Because of his light-coloured shirt, you can clearly see his lapel mic.
Yes. I don't know if they could do anything about that. Maybe just a bit of yellow cloth around it. But I suppose if they do that, then it actually covers the mic.
But it's not really something they could help, I don't think.
Well, certainly the team couldn't. It might have been an idea for the production crew to insist that the Dungeoneer wears a dark coloured.
Maybe, but I don't think it really... It kind of takes you out of it a bit, but... Then again, so does looking over an advisor's shoulder and seeing they're looking at a TV screen. So
yeah, and I think also we've got to remember most of the time the Dungeoneer has his back to the camera and is a long way away from it as well.
The Dungeoneer Martin is joined by his advisors Lee, Tony, and John, and all 4 hail from Sunderland. Lee just looks as pleased as punch to be there. His little face lights up.
That's how every Dungeoneer advisor should be.
It's just like he's so excited. Yeah, the other 2 look more nervous, with John in particular looking like he's sizing Treguard up, ready for a scrap.
There's not so much nervous as soiling his pants. Are you looking at me, Dungeon Master? I've got to say, on this team, they're actually rather better than the outcome of their quest would suggest. Spoiler alert, they don't get very far.
Well, they are record holders.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. I checked this personally a couple of weeks ago. They're good at manoeuvring, though. They're actually pretty good at manoeuvring, and they're not too bad at the mental aspects of the game. I think they are a little unlucky.
Horribly unlucky. I completely agree.
There's another one of those rather harsh ones where you miss out on some really, really important information in the clue room.
Now, Martin, take this knapsack for food, but place only food in it. You'll need it to sustain your sprite of energy. This is its manifestation. It is your own life force. This is condition green. The next stage is amber. And on condition red, you are in grave peril, for this is no game of numerous lives. Here, you have only one. Now, Martin, in your quest for truth, you must don the helmet of justice. It will blind you to the way ahead, but still allow you to see objects directly beneath. For the rest, your advisors must be your eyes, and their voices will reach you through the helmet. I, of course, will be with you, and yet not with you. Use logic and guile to find the right path. But remember, the only way is onward. There is no turning back.
And after the rules run down, Treguard sends Martin into the dungeon, and the first quest of Series 2 is underway.
You may notice as Treguard's in the rules rundown, it's been reworded slightly, but it's still too long.
Where am I?
You're in a hallway with 5 stars in front of you. And on your right-hand side, there's a lever.
Yes. Step forward, Martin. Stop.
Attention, team, this is the Wheel of Fate. It could also be the Wheel of Fortune if you're quick enough. Martin has but seconds to ensure his progress by halting the wheel at the chamber of his choice.
Turn right, Martin.
Use the lever directly by your right hand, Martin.
Forward.
But hurry.
Step forward, quick.
Or you'll be trapped here.
Yeah, there's a lever in front of you.
We've got what I think is the best variants of what's sometimes called the place of choice.
I disagree with it being the best version.
Go on.
Was it series 3 or 4 where they finally managed to get hold of a revolving stage?
Season 3 actually has one of the worst because it's just the dice room. It's just a big green room with a little table in it and the dice. I actually found it a really boring intro.
That was mainly done to show off what at the time was an impressive display of computer graphics.
It was green.
I'm talking about the dice itself.
Yeah. But the room was green. No features whatsoever. The walls just blank green. The floor blank green. The ceiling blank green. Here, you've got an actual chamber with flagstones. You've got a ruined wall. And this beautiful swirling magic ball comes out of nowhere. Far better animated than the dice, actually. It shoots out of the darkness of space, appears in front of you, and it warps and morphs into this wheel that allows you to enter the dungeon. I think it's vastly superior to any other intro chamber in any season. I can't think of any season where there's a better intro chamber for a quest.
My favourite is the big wheel thing that the Dungeoneers almost fell off a couple of times.
That was the first room of level 2 in season 3. And then was transplanted into a sort of valley in season 4.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
I still prefer the Wheel of Fate.
So Martin pulls the lever.
Do I? Oh, sorry.
Stop! It's the 4 doors stop.
This is actually disappointing, isn't it? That having established this wonderful new chamber to start things with, once they pull the lever, they wind up back in the 4-door chamber from season 1 again.
Yeah.
4-door chamber's been recoloured to make it greyer and darker and grimier than last season. It's been given a bit of animation on this occasion. It's only done on this one occasion, but they've added some cartoon torches above the doors.
And enter Gretel, pursued by Folly.
Just as life is full of glee.
Stop it, Polly! I said stop it!
This is the debut of probably the most irritating play school presenter type of character in the history of the series. Audrey Jenkinson got lots of much better work when she was on Take the High Road. This is not a high point of her career. On the plus side for this scene, Alec Westwood is immediately back into the groove as Folly. It's like he's never been away. Not a great follow-up to the Wheel of Fate, but at least we're underway.
I think Alec Westwood always seems to work best when he's got another actor to work off of.
Someone to spark off of, yeah. From season 4 onwards, they insisted on giving Treguard an assistant. And I've always thought that rather got in the way. But on the screen, when there's more than one dungeon character, that's where you really want that kind of exchange happening.
David Lerner actually played Pickle very well. It's just that
the concept was wrong.
Look, there's something else for you to play with. There's some kind of a thingummy over there. Why don't you go and play with that?
You're not a thingamy, are you?
No.
No, of course not. You're a bold dungeoneer, or my name's not Richard the Lionheart. Actually, it's not Richard the anything. Folly is my name, and folly is my nature. Foolishness my character, and fun my alma mater. Oh, what's your name then, young dungeoneer?
Martin.
You look much more fun to play with than Gretel. Gretel is a maiden sort of a maid. Anyway, are you ready for my game?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the name of the game is Chase the Lady. I'm going to chase in this direction. I wonder which direction you should chase in. Bye!
They chased the lady through the, I think it was the middle right-hand door, wasn't it?
Yes.
And where do they wind up?
Where am I?
You're in a bomb room.
Be fast on your feet before your life was the bleach bomb room. Bum, 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 bum room.
What room am I in?
You're in a square room, and there's 2 doors in the right corner and a table near the middle.
Another familiar sight, the level 1 clue room. On the table is a gauntlet, a key, a bottle of ground toad's legs, and some sort of cake. It does appear that the clue room has changed slightly since the previous series, though, as now Martin isn't even allowed to take the cake until after he's faced the riddle challenge.
I remember one occasion in season 3, in the clue room, the dungeoneer takes the food and puts it in the knapsack. The war monster appears It says halt. The life force clock is turned to green. The Dungeoneer gets the willies, takes the food item out and puts it back on the table, and the life force clock immediately goes back to amber. I love it when the production crew play along like that, I have to say.
I am Olgarth of legend. Face me and learn, or perish in ignorance, as I feed on you.
It is born of an egg, yet its mother never feeds it. A song it sings, but only 2 notes ever leave it.
Now, I didn't know the answer to this one.
Didn't you?
Kim did, and she explained it to me. Just in case anyone else doesn't know, cuckoos lay their eggs in the nests of other birds, and when the cuckoo hatches, it pushes all the other eggs out of the nest.
Second riddle. Who is the giant of the greenwood? That's also nice and refreshing, because it's just one line.
Yeah.
Simple question, one line, straight through.
I could understand them not getting it if they hadn't got a blatant clue from Treguard, who almost gives them the answer, in my opinion.
Pretty close to it, wasn't it?
Mm.
The answer they give is orc, which isn't a terrible answer, I should stress.
I heard it as oak, which also isn't a terrible answer.
It isn't. An oak tree is a giant, so that would actually have some merit to it, and that makes it doubly harsh.
When Treguard's literally telling them, think of Sherwood Forest, think of this particular specific forest that's famous for this specific thing.
Yeah, I know, but if you think about that, you could just as easily say Friar Tuck, because he was giant around the middle, shall we say.
Yeah, but he wasn't purposefully named Little John as a sort of ironic name.
Whether it's oak or orc, both of those are pretty close to being fair enough, so I do think they're a little unlucky.
The phrasing of the question is bad.
Maybe if they'd said name the giant of the greenwood.
One riddle, one answer.
Orc.
Name it now.
Orc.
Falsehood. Little John was the truth I sought. Here is my third.
Time and tide wait for no man, yet in one substance will measure it for him. Name it. Everyone knows this one.
Sand.
Is it? Yes. So 2 is the score, and they've done reasonably well there.
Olgarth tells Martin that his quest is for the sword, though he may not wield it. I think this is the first time that they've been given a specific quest object other than just the promise of item.
It was never very clear in the first season exactly what the aim was, apart from surviving.
There were a few times when the correct path was represented by a cup.
Yeah, that was the final quest. So you could tell that obviously there was something kind of cup object they needed to claim in some way. I would say they made quite a clever, quite elaborate setup for pursuing the quest object here, which is the quest object is in 3 magic pieces scattered around the dungeon. You've got to gather those pieces and then cast a spell to unite them into a single object. I really like that setup. I prefer it, in fact, to what happened in later years, which was a physical object that you had to pick up.
And speaking of quest objects, how do you know for sure that a team is definitely going to lose from the start?
Well, they're sent after the cup. So why did Tottenham Hotspur never win?
Olgarth also says that the password for this level is the maiden's name. Let's hope the team were listening to Folly earlier. Olgarth has barely demanifested before Treguard starts chastising the team for wasting time. The cake goes in Martin's knapsack, and the team decide to take the key and the gauntlet.
Where am I?
You're on the edge of a ledge.
Don't push me, 'cause I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to fall off that ledge. Yo, in the dungeons sometimes it makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
There's a guard in front of you.
Halt! Intruder alert, level 1. Gumboil the Orid reporting.
The team tells Martin that he's on the edge of a ledge, which they find hysterically funny.
Gumboil is in a very officious mood, even by his own standards.
They were paying attention to Folly, and they correctly surmised the password is Gretel.
Gretel.
Password accepted. Pass on.
Walk forward carefully, Martin.
Stop. Just you make sure you get the password for level 2, or you go on the chopping list. Go on you go, before I change my mind.
What kind of room is it?
Martin, listen, straight ahead. Even a well room, Martin. There's a well. Walk forward and get into it.
Yeah, so this is very interesting. It appears to be a well chamber, but there's an old crone standing by the well who is talking in the voice of Advisor Lee and urging Martin to climb into the well. However, just as he steps up to the opening...
Stand still, Martin. This is a threat I had not expected, for she's not often found on this level. Her name is Mildred. And as you've discovered, she's a voice changer. A shape changer, too, as you're about to discover. Mildred, everything as it was, now!
Interfering, dratted, devious dungeon master. All mouth and broadsword. Yes, master. Very well, master. As you will, master.
And now you see how important it is to know exactly what you're getting into. Treat her with caution, team. She can be useful, but she's always dangerous.
Dangerous? Dangerous? I wouldn't hurt a fly. I'd hurt him, though. I'd turn him into a fly and then hurt him.
Do you think this was recorded afterwards? Because they must have got the advisor to record the lines.
Yeah, they definitely got the advisor to record the line. I think it was recorded beforehand.
Yeah, actually, that makes more sense, yeah.
Because otherwise, the Dungeoneer wouldn't have reacted in the same way.
Could have been like on the pretense of a sound test or something, maybe.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things they could do there. The bit where I think the Dungeoneer should have started getting suspicious was when the advisor goes, "Hurry up, Martin, what are you waiting for?" Advisors don't talk like that.
Oh, I don't know. Danny's team. Hurry up, wasting time.
But anyway, you notice Hugo has a bit of a flub here. It happens.
I'm glad you noticed that as well, because I thought I was imagining it. Not a problem, it's just an observation.
It was undeniably an observation. I want to talk about Mildred, because I think she is one of the best characters of the early years.
Great character, certainly one of the most dangerous characters.
She's something that every episode of Nightmare could do with at some point. She's a bit of a wild card, quite temperamental, but she can also be extremely helpful. And once again, Mary Miller is the dog's boss.
We've made comment before about how Lilith will command Treguard out of her presence. Mildred actually seems to exercise some control over him.
But I think this is where Hugo Myatt gets his revenge on Mary Miller a bit. Because although Mildred does sometimes use magic on Treguard, he always comes back here. When Lilith does it, Treguard cowers and caves into her. With Mildred, no. You use magic on me, you're going to suffer for it. So Hugo gets a little bit of his own back in these exchanges. Some of the traps and tricks that she sets up are really quite clever and amusing ones.
The Arthurian character that she reminds me most of is Madam Mim.
Yes. Tim Child has frequently admitted that an awful lot of concepts of Nightmare in the first few years had been derived from Arthurian legend. Mary Miller definitely laid over something else of her own onto the character. Between that and the writing, you got something that's really quite, I think, really quite unique.
Treguard commands Mildred to change everything back to how it should be, and when she does so, we discover that Martin was about to climb straight into a cauldron of boiling liquid.
She's a crafty so-and-so. So Mildred decides that a change over to tact is in order and politely asks Martin if he has any bat's wings for her, which of course he doesn't. But he does have a key. Mildred's supply is really amusing.
A key? Oh, lovely, lovely. My door's got no lock.
Mildred pokes Martin out of the door with the long, thin bit of her broom. If you look closely at the foot of her cloak while she's chasing him out, it's very clear it passes through the fire on several occasions.
I think that if they'd given her the toad's legs, then she would have been able to make do with those.
Bat's wings was what she wanted to eat. If it was toad's legs, that it said on the jar, presumably she could use that instead to create a well, if you trust her, of course.
In the bomb room, Martin.
Bomb room, bum 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 room.
Hold as fast as you can. Quickly, run. Quickly, run.
Oh dear, what a pity, never mind.
There are times when I'm looking at the bomb rooms in The Nightmare, the ridiculous oversized objects dangling in midair with the fuse going, and I'm just thinking, you might as well play the Warner Brothers cartoon theme tune.
And that's that for Martin's team. As Traegard
tells them that had they known how to use the armor as gauntlets, they might have survived. Without that knowledge, they had no chance.
very unfair, I think. It's not often that you're expected to get a perfect score in the clue room.
Most teams in these early stages would have been given a second chance here. After the end of level 1, yeah, it's fair enough to say, right, you've got to do everything right here. It's a little like the team from Glamorgan, Team 5 in Season 1. It does seem awfully harsh. Their quest ends after 9 minutes and 41 seconds. Officially, in terms of the broadcast time, that is the shortest quest in the history of Nightmare. And it doesn't seem right that a team that really isn't that bad be the ones to be lumbered with that rather embarrassing title.
Traegard dismisses the team so that they may join Martin on the path home.
Spellcasting. D-I-S-M-I-S-S. Boys, we're sorry to lose you, but there again, it's you who've lost. Farewell. The dungeon wins and challenges still. I wonder who will be next. Enter, stranger.
Immediately after waving goodbye to Martin and co, Traegard racks up for another quest with a new team.
Name yourself, please.
Claire Tisdale.
Well, quickly, Claire, call your advisors and let them introduce themselves.
Kerry, Michelle, Cheryl.
Who guides this dungeoneer?
I'm Kerry Humphries from Ludlow in Shropshire.
I'm Michelle Payne and I'm from Ludlow too.
I'm Cheryl Oakley. I'm also from Ludlow.
Your challenge is accepted.
And check out all the pink. It almost looks like Series 5.
A little bit, yes. They're actually pretty lousy at dungeoneering, these ones, but they do get rather further.
I messaged you yesterday, didn't I? Because I was watching this team doing the notes and I was raging.
They're not very good. They are not very good. They seem to have absorbed all the good luck the previous team were denied.
So, face the dungeon door and step boldly forward.
Where am I?
You're in a room with a lever. Push the lever forwards.
Push.
Stop! It's the 4 doors stop.
At least it looks a bit different again here. This is a bit more like it was at the end of Season 1, in that it's got symbols on the doors. The knight chess piece, seeing that you're trying to become a knight and it's knight's mare, does seem the obvious option, and they did reason that pretty well.
Keep going, keep going.
Where am I?
You're in a room which has one opening. Keep on going. Wait, stop. Don't move. Wait.
There's cracks in the floor.
There's lightning just cracked the floor.
There's 2 big holes.
Now, this chamber gets used a lot over the second and third seasons. It gets used quite differently in Season 3 a lot of the time. This in fact, is pretty scary, especially when you're not used to it. It looks like a fairly nondescript room. There's a doorway opposite with the carving of a lion's head at the top of it. It's a straightforward walk to the door, and then suddenly laser bolts appear from out of your eyes and have you jumping out of your seat as the floor starts breaking up under the force of the laser bolts.
Before we talk about it anymore, there's something I wanted to ask you, and this seems to be as good a place as any. I believe it's Series 2 where there was a competition, wasn't there, to actually design a chamber?
There was. I wanted to take part in that competition, but unfortunately my drawing skills are absolutely trash. So I gave up. But I did have an idea for that. I think it was around about episode 7 or 8. what was happening was the host on CITV presented a little sequence just before the beginning of an episode. And Hugo Myatt was there in his full Treguard garb.
Imagine, if you will, an entirely new chamber for my dungeon, created from your own thoughts, complete with doors and puzzles, and then paint it or sketch it for me. And when you are doing so, remember, everything is possible, for here, everything is surely an illusion.
I had an idea for a rather elaborate cavern with a conveyor belt with a series of platforms on it operating as lift.
Do we know what actually won?
Yeah, the winner was announced a few weeks before Christmas, and it was a bell room. There was a long sort of counter or table across the middle of a chamber, and there was a set of bells lined up across the table. There would be some kind of clue to tell you which was the best bell to ring. I think it was 3 doors, and each had a portcullis over it. Whichever bell you rung, that would open one of the portcullises, but if you chose the wrong one, rather than letting you out, it would let a monster into the room.
That's actually quite good. Did they ever use it?
It wasn't, unfortunately, no. It would have been interesting for them to do something like that, but in the end, they had other ideas.
And incidentally, if you are the winner of that competition and you're listening to this right now, please get in touch. We would love to hear from you.
And you can tell me whether I'm remembering it right. I could be remembering it completely wrongly.
But anyway, back to the Lionhead hallway. All they have to do is walk straight forward.
In the end, yes. It's understandable panicking because all these laser bolts suddenly come flying out.
But they do actually make it through the door.
Yes, unfortunately, yes, they do.
Carry on. Carry on.
Where am I? You're in a room.
That was close, team, but at least you're safely through to the level 1 clue room. Objects are here, but remember, 2 only may you carry, and all must be earned.
You're in a room with 2 doors, and there's a table right in the middle.
Walk forward.
Intruder, beware. I am Igneous of Legend. I seek truth or feed on you.
This is a much grander alternative clue room. It's the very first appearance of the red level 1 clue room. This is one of the best moves of the first episode of season 2, and for the most part, most of the moves have been very, very positive ones so far. It looks better than the first clue room. This is much grander. It's rather palatial in some ways. The redness of it screams danger. It's also the back wall of it. There's no doors in it. There's no filled-in doors in it. It's just one big constant wall, and that means the whole of the wall can be used for the wall monster. So when the wall monster appears, he's gigantic. The Dungeoneer is really being dwarfed by this one.
I like how Igneous actually looks like a wall as well.
Yes.
There's actual brickwork.
This one's played by Edmund Dane. If you listen carefully, you can hear that same slightly nasal quality from Gumboil.
Edmund Dane's busy this series, isn't he?
He is. He's very busy. He'll also get to play the Automatum, the mindless mechanical warrior.
Treguard informs the team that Igneous usually has a splitting headache.
3 truths I seek, and 1 will pass you.
So anyway, let's go to the first riddle. The tortoise was slow, old, and wrinkled of face. Well, there's no need to be personal, Igneous. Come on. If he turned out the winner, who did he race? Whom? I'd give Igneous a slap for his poor grammar there. Everybody, of course, knows the legend of the tortoise and the hare. It's one of the first stories we're told in school. But good God, isn't Claire passive about answering the riddle?
Claire, do you agree with her?
Yeah.
Well, tell Claire to say it.
Claire, say it.
What?
Say the answer.
Hair.
Truth accepted. Here is my second.
A tree died for it, ink dried on it, it can be read then rolled.
Number 1, the answer is paper, and they get it right. Number 2, Igneous is getting high.
Yeah, he's clearly talking about spliffs here.
Paper.
Yeah, we think that's what
Yeah. Paper.
Truth accepted. Here is my third.
Before the coming of the cross, there was another god of light, but they never worshipped him at night. Name him. The correct answer is Ra, but as he is a sun god, they decided to let them get away with it. So in a manner of speaking, they kind of got the answer wrong. It is the sun god, but the sun god has a name, and that name is Ra.
What do you think to the sun god?
Yeah, okay. Sun god.
Truth accepted. 3 is the score.
Igneous tells Claire that her quest is for the shield, but it will not defend her. He also says the cup has a bitter taste. Now, because Claire has a perfect score, she's allowed to command the monster, and from there she gets a password for the level 1, which is Feldspar.
And let's just say, Igneous tells her.
The cup has a bitter taste.
Treguard tells her.
Think what the wall monster told you.
Twice.
Okay,
But if it has a bitter taste,
I've got them.
Almost undo all their good work in the clue room because they completely overlook the clues the war monster has given them for choosing the objects. And Treguard therefore has to prompt them so much that he's practically cheating on their behalf.
If this were a Pickle episode, Pickle would be running in and taking the cup off them. Rule number 1 of Nightmare, the cup is always bad. But they do decide to leave the cup eventually and take the pearls instead.
There's an apple tart, which they finally put in the knapsack, a key, some pearls, and the old tankard, which we're referring to as a cup here.
They take the pearls and the key.
Where am I? You're in a room with the archway leading out. And there's a green monster.
oh, I haven't met this monster before. A friend or foe, I wouldn't know, but I shouldn't wait to find out.
So back in the snake chamber, the new entity in the wrecked wall opposite is a green face with 2 big eyes, and this is actually manages to be even less scary than the snake that normally appears. When I watch this, I really want the dungeon to stop and talk to him.
Even Treguard doesn't really know if it's friendly or not.
It's just there. It might just as well be a chair or something. It's just there.
And I'd like to say that the team just realised this and kind of get on with it and walk straight out the door, but my God, this is awful.
They do make a bit of a zigzag meal of getting out, don't they? But at least they did go. So after this incredibly easy obstacle has been hurdled, they get out of the chamber, and where do they arrive?
Go on.
Where am I?
You're in a cavern with a lady sitting on some stones.
Silence, spies! Chitter, chatter, chitter. Young person, I don't recall inviting you in here.
It's Lilith's first appearance in season 2, and she's pretty much on form.
Have you noticed the makeup is different?
It is, yeah.
There's a lot less of it, for one thing. I think it is better.
I do as well. Assessing the scene overall, this is, there's a shallow attempt at tricking Claire into stepping off the ledge.
Yeah, she is in a bit of mischievous mood today.
But apart from that, this is pretty generic Lilith stuff.
Mildred and Lilith are almost polar opposites, but the actual scene itself is quite similar.
Yes, it is. The only really major difference is that they happen to have the right clue object this time.
There seems to be a bit more detail in the actual causeway itself.
They've also made it a little bit less spectral.
Rock to rock and stone to stone, span the pit and cross the zone. There you are, you see. Now you really can come over here to me, and you will be rewarded if you are carrying something that I desire.
Warning team, complete temporal disruption imminent. Time is now the enemy. Oh dear, temporal disruption complete. All adventuring must now cease until you phase with us once more. Will our team please Lilith and win their way to magic? And anyway, why should you care? For surely it's all merely an illusion. Join us again for Nightmare. And just keep telling yourself, it can't be real. Can it?
Well, anyway, that's temporal disruption. And here's where we immediately get another reason to smile with relief that things are improving. This episode has its own outro rather than just recycling the outro from episode 1 of season 1.
Something my wife noticed, calling back to episode 1 of our podcast, no willies this time. No willies above the fireplace. The willies are gone.
This is also the first ever time where we get the credits and you don't have to listen to a dungeon character roaring with laughter.
Well, the version I was watching, I had to listen to the Challenge TV announcer talking about The Price is Right.
Overall, that's a very good episode. It's I would say it's probably the best episode to this point. Plenty of variety, a lot of new rooms. Feeling that the pace is definitely lifted again. Still one or two things that haven't quite got right yet. still at this point haven't got rid of the rules rundown. Yes, he's hurrying things up, but he only hurries things up after he's completed the rules rundown. But yes, it's definitely the best episode so far, I would say. And you're seeing a lot of new places in the dungeon that we didn't get to see in the first season. Good stuff.
From an episode standpoint, it is one of the best ones we've had so far. From a team standpoint, we've had one team that was okay but very unlucky, and current team, which I don't want to punch down, but they are exasperating.
I wouldn't rate them as bad as Maeve's team in season 1. They are wobbly, this lot.
They are, to be fair, entertaining.
Yeah, sometimes for the wrong reasons.
So if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email us at broomcupboardclub@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. We're at NightmarePod. Our Patreon is patreon.com/NightmarePod, and you can support the show for as little as $1 a month. And remember, 100% of what we get goes back into the show. And in the meantime, don't have nightmares.
Just watch them instead.
Beetlejuice?